winding down, and each day, each minute counts. Today, we're going to look at another critical part of the harvest factor, because these elements make up things that will give you that assurance that you've actually been investing so much in your life. I think it was last year. I mean, there was a midterm assessment I had on myself last year, and I realized that in almost about 5 years, that's between 2020 prior to COVID and post COVID, within that 5 years tenure period, I was just making an assessment of how much I've invested in myself. Hey, I'm sure taking those decisions would have been more difficult if some of the investment decisions I took were not spontaneous. If I needed to have logically reasoned and took those decisions, I'm sure I wouldn't have, because I mean, you need to imagine how much I spent on some of my educational pursuits, some lot of certifications I did, some sort of crazy decisions I took in diving into some aspect of my um, entrepreneurial journey. I mean, it was just me looking at myself and like, but so really, you took all these decisions, So sometimes life is like that, because you get to a point whereby you begin to look back on the kind of investment, the kind of um, um, planting, the sowing, the seedlings, the culturing. I mean, all those exercises, all those uh, um, things that you've done in order to be able to build yourself and grow, right? So when you get to that point in life and you begin to look at those dimensions, you want to be sure that you are going to be seeing good things. Just imagine me doing that midterm review of myself last year, and all I could see were just patterns of uh, um, failed attempts, no records of progress, even though the progress can be iterative, but no record of progress. All I'm just seeing is stagnancy. Do you think I will have a sense of fulfillment? Do you think I'm going to have a sense of even to celebrate at any point in time, or say, yeah, I'm actually achieving success? Not because I didn't fail. I mean, excuse me, I remember in the space of that 5 years, I had a repeat exams almost like about 3 or 4 times. You know, I also have some, I mean, I think about two, which I've not been able to even lay my hands on back again. I mean, I have those failed attempt moments as well, but hey, they weren't going to deter me from still accomplishing my progressive growth. So this is exactly what life typifies for each and every one of us. And that's why some of these anchors on harvest, you don't wait until when you are near the grave before you start thinking about it. Yesterday, remember I told you, or was it 2 days ago, when I was mentioning about, at what age do you think a man or someone will start thinking about preparing will for his life? So it's just the same thing as you're progressing on the journey. At a point in time, you need to halt and think about the harvest factor. Yesterday talking about mentoring, and today looking at this subject of legacy. So how then do you create impact in order for you to be able to have legacies, is what we want to talk about, because it's very, very important, as equally important as the mentoring we talked about yesterday. I know it is traditional when you hear legacy that we start thinking about old age, or we start thinking about people in their prime years. But hey, that is not the mentality of, or the mindset of growth. Growth mindset, is as such that when you start gaining traction, when you start gaining momentum, tempo, which we dealt with throughout last week, right? Regardless of the age, regardless of the time, When you start making those level of accomplishment and you're progressing, you are moving, you notice your life is not stagnant. It's a time you need to start thinking consciously, deliberately about legacies, about the way you're creating streams of impact. In fact, your goal setting begins to make sense more to you, from this mindset of the need for you to start creating impact. So let's look at how to go about this. And I'll start by explaining to us what legacy is all about. Legacy for me is well, I don't want to use the word future because future is just the next moment. So I don't want to use that word to confuse us. But technically, when you're talking about future, it means the next moment, the unknown timeline. So it's never going to be your past because it's already experienced. It's not going to be the present because it's known, but the unknown, which is the next moment. No man knows tomorrow. So your tomorrow is not, today is Tuesday, right? Your tomorrow is not Wednesday. Tomorrow is the next hour, is the next second, is the next minute, right? The next day, of course, next week. So it's always the next, which will soon become the present and eventually become the past. So when you're talking about legacy, is understanding this time frame or that will build the culture, against your precedent actions, because along each of the timeline, moving from your past to present, there are things that you'll be doing which are organized to be set of actions. Okay, there are certain things that you do, actions undergirded by your decisions undergirded by your knowledge or what you know, and what you know undergirded by your commitment, to your progress or to your growth. Because if you are not committed to your growth, you will not seek for knowledge. Remember when we talk about a commitment to lifelong learning. So if you are not learning, you are not going to have the right mindset to make the right decisions. And when you're not making the right decisions, obviously your actions are going to be wrong or negative. And then you can now begin to imagine what the outcome would be for you, in the sand of time. So this is how to understand legacy. You see that precedence? That's how to understand legacies. And it cut across all the dimensions of your life. So you will not consciously begin to build legacies or develop or create legacies, those impact streams, in the area of life or the dimension of life where you are not finding relevance, where you are not creating evidential relevance. So that's why part of the early task I gave you is for you to identify those dimensions of your life so that you are conscious about it. It's part of the assignment you need to do around self-awareness. You need to be self-aware about all the dimensions of your life. Okay. And then when you now get to the point where you're thinking about the harvest element or the features of harvest, then you begin to look at what your actions has always been across those dimensions. If you have only been acting upon just one or two dimensions, that's the only area of life where you're going to maybe have meaningful legacy if you follow some of the things I'm going to share with you subsequently. And every other thing will just remain like a resource. Is it resource or resource now? But let me just say, will become dormant. So you need to be careful, and that's why understanding what legacy means is very, very important. Why does this really matter? Because someone will imagine. Again, I think I repeatedly mentioned this because that's what I've captured in my mind over these years, growing, and it remains something that is my watchword. And that is, I don't want to be a snake that will pass through a rock, that will never leave an indelible mark or leave a noticeable imprint in the sand of time. I mean, when you see a snake crawling on the rock, the best the snake would do is to shed skin. So perhaps maybe it's just the skin that you see, but you will not know that something has crawled on the rock. So you don't want to be like that, because sometimes life might be like a rock, hard rock to crack for that matter, where people will want to given to hustling, bustling, challenging themselves with a lot of hassles, chaos, confusion. You are contending for so many things all at the same time. And since the world is collapsing all over you, so the level of your resilience and your grit or determination is what keeps you, at bay and keep you alive. So many times you want to even forget about what we have been talking about in terms of mindset because it's now the survival of the fittest. Someone will tell you that you breathe first before you think, right? So, but hey, by the time you understand the fact that life does not consist just only for you living, okay? It's not just only about you living, that just breathing is what life is all about. No, life is much more than that. Otherwise, the biology will have just explained to us that the meaning of life is just breathe and that's it. No, it's much more than that. Even looking at the content of the explanation of Mr. Niger D, it pretends or presupposes that there's so much more that is expected of you as a human that is living on earth, starting from the aspect of you having dominion to the point of you taking control, leadership, building yourself, getting the best of yourself, reproducing yourself. I mean, all of these things, and you want to be sure that you are actually, creating the best version of yourself, which you are now trying to reproduce or you are trying to put here on earth. So, why legacy is important is simply because you need to ensure that you are not that kind of person that will pass through the sand of time and there is nothing to record about you. And there are a lot of people that are living like that. There are a lot of people that are living like that. Some are even deceived, thinking that is the possessions that they'll be remembered for. How many of us remember Okotiebo in this Nigeria? Let's do a bit of history. How many of us remember Okotiebo? Or have you heard of someone called Okotiebo? Anybody? Has anybody heard about Okotiebo before? Chief Okotiebo.
No. Is it the same? Oh, is it the same Okotie that was uh, wanted to be the president? I think it's okay. The Okotie I know is a pastor.
Yeah, I mean, in the history of Nigeria, I don't think there's any two Okotiebo.
Okay, so
There's
it's the
there's
same
no two.
person.
Yeah, there's no two Okotiebo. Okotiebo actually served in the cabinet. I can't remember which particular regime now. He served as a finance minister, and like you said, yeah, at a point in time, he has a ambition of becoming the president of the country. Why I mentioned this is, if you read about him, I mean, this man amassed a lot of wealth, stupendous wealth. He had a lot of wealth. He was practically, affluent, at that sense, and I mean, I didn't grow up to know him. I don't think I was even um alive at the peak of his affluence, but reading about him, I can't see any trace apart from the fact that his name was immortalized by having some streets named after him here in Lagos. When you go to Ikoyi, there's an Okotiebo Street or is it Avenue or something like that. There probably be somewhere in Abuja or in his hometown or whatever. These are just the only few memories that remain in the mind of people. But if you go to read more about him in his rainy days while he was alive, while he was growing here on earth, please just follow my thoughts so that you understand, trying to establish the reason why legacy matters and what really should be the meaning of legacy to us as I've defined. This man had all of these things, build houses. I'm sure that he must have amassed a lot of land and willed it to himself, different places in Nigeria. Money, of course, you know. So, I mean, clothing, this man used a lot of luxury things, clothing, all the things that were trendy that time. If you see him in his regalia, he's just that unique as a person, just to show the affluence, you know. But where is all these things today? I mean, this is just barely about 40 years ago. This is just barely, it's not even up to a century. It's not even up to half a century, you know. I'm sure that if you ask any Gen Z or even some people in my generation, I did due diligence to have read history because I had interest in some of these things. But I can bet you with you that people in my generation, millennia, who doesn't have a clue about this and who don't even know him, who doesn't know him, how much more Gen Z or Gen Alpha or Gen Beta. So this is exactly what we're talking about. It's not just about the money. It's not just about those material possession and all of that. That may be secondary, which I'll still show you, but it's not necessarily about those things, right? So why it matters is because your name has to be immortalized, your name and your works. You see, all these things that you are laboring on that you think amounts to your growth, in different dimensions of your life, your career, those things you are doing, hard work that you are doing, by the time you step aside, do you think you still be remembered about the commitment and all those things that you impute in doing those things? Because it's just a matter of time before you are forgotten and all the things you've labored for are forgotten. So that's why legacy matters. Okay. So what are the types of legacies? This is pretty simple, and I've tried to call it across 4 areas of life or dimensions of life. So just imagine all those dimensions that you've identified for yourself, right? So starting from your physical life, your personal life, your relationship, your professional life or career, then your community life in society, your spiritual life with God, all of these things are different streams where you can make impact and leave legacies. So you find different types of legacies across there. Personal, how can you, define streams of impact or legacies? It's usually defined by the forms of relationship you established, okay, and your personal core values or your belief system. In terms of relationship, you have your nuclear relationship and you have your extended relationship. The rapport you build, just like the Bible says that there are some friends that are still closer than a brother. So when you're talking about family, I'm not just talking about your kids and needs, people that are only close to you by blood, but there are so many people, that have become like a family. I remember a friend of mine sent me a message on my birthday, or was it a day after? Okay, yeah, it was almost a day after because of the time zone. And I didn't even see it early because by the time I saw it, I was like, okay. I mean, the person was just writing and, of course, published it, put it on the wall, and was like, okay, this person has become not just a brother, but now a family and all of that. I mean, looking back, when I read those lines of what was written, I now had to start ruminating of how we started all together way back in secondary school. All those times we spent together on holidays, bring a friend to my cousin, how we all grew up together, studied together. I mean, all those memories were just coming. And I mean, what I'm talking to you about is almost about 25 years ago, right? And 25 years after, I could see this kind of, so that means that something would have been impacted in the person's life. Okay, I'm hearing myself, this man.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. So, I mean, something must have been
It was a mistake.
impacted in the person's life. No problem. No problem. It's fine. Just mute yourself. Just mute yourself.
Sorry for that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So, something must have really, which unconsciously, naively I might have, done in terms of how we grew up interacting and all of that. And but I mean, it was something that really reinforced my understanding about growth in that sense. I mean, we were a lot of us grew up together, a lot of us. Alone in my set, while I was in secondary school, we are almost about 105 in my set because we had six hams, A to F, So, but I'm saying this so that you know that when you're talking about impacting people's lives, and leaving legacies, does not, especially within your physical or personal life, does not only limit to your family relationship in that sense. Everyone that even in terms of your working relationship with people, in your career, in your community, all the areas where God will channel your path through, even it's going to be just a day, you are going to spend the same space with people. You want to ensure that you are leaving indelible mark and you are imprinting your name in their heart so that when they step away, right, they can always remember that name will be kept in their memory. I've tried all my life to be, but see, sometimes some of these things require you to even, begin to dispose yourself to some of the skill sets that I've explained to you in previous sessions in terms of how you are able to understand people's emotions, how you're able to understand and manage communication so that it's not on every provocation. Because once you have actually misbehaved in a relationship, you may never had time or any other opportunity, you may never had a second chance for you to be able to make a repair. So you don't want to sever such relationship. And sometimes they'll tell you false impression lasts longer. There's some impression people will pick about you and think that that is just some really who you are. Whereas it's pseudo, but that's a false impression and you can't, blame them for that. So this will give you that kind of this growth mindset trajectory about this harvest. When you begin to think about the harvest factor, you always have to culture and confine yourself within a governable instances and boundaries so that you don't misbehave, so that you don't mistalk, so that you don't react, in a negative manner as such that you are given wrong impression about who you are, which you may never stand a chance because people will have judged you in absentia before you can even begin to make some PR management for damage control and all of that. So that is exactly what these different types of legacy portends to us. Of course, when you now dive deep into each of the dimensions, they all have their peculiarities, right? Depending on how or what type of engagement you're having at those levels. For instance, in your career, it depends on how much you want to climb, how far you want to go. Okay. Maybe your goal set is going to take you to the zenith, but if your goal set is not going to take you beyond the midway, you want to ensure that you also take full advantage of that. But there are some people that they will get to the zenith of their career. There are some that they will attain all that can be achieved in their career, and that will suffice for them. But all along, make sure that you are living the pathway because every step you take on a daily basis is an opportunity for you to make impact. It's an opportunity for you to leave an indelible mark in the sand of time, either with your action or with your inaction, in the way you communicate with people and how you react to things and situations in life. Okay, I would like you to see some of the principles which I've highlighted that will help you to create impact. Because as you contend in different areas of life and as you begin to move and navigate through different dimensions, there are certain things that you need to begin to now deploy through these processes, which I see as principles. Some of them I've already emphasized in the time past, but just to recall them so that that can form the basis of your framework for life. One is you have to ensure that your life is purpose driven. It is very, very important. If your life is not purpose driven, trust me, just forget about anything that has to do with impact because your interest would definitely not be focused on purpose. Your interest will be maybe utilitarian or will be just mere subsistence for existence. Subsistence in the sense that it's all about uh, uh, um, there's a word I'm looking for. You are just focused on the now, on the present. Your focus is on mindfulness. And life, as we define it, is much more than mindfulness. It's bigger than mindfulness. So if you are purpose driven, it's going to give you a balanced perspective of what life means. So you have clarity of purpose. You're going to have clarity on your goal setting per time. And then you will have a clear definition of what success is, as we have discussed, which you will now begin to now place before yourself. as you move continually. And trust me, you'll become boundless, you become unrestricted. You are going to become limitless in the way you are going to ensure your pursuits, because now it is focused. Every aim you want to ensure that you achieve, putting into practice all that we have discussed. Then the second one talks about your engagement with consistency and commitment, right? This is going to be a major feature of your life. Because your life is purpose driven, you have no other alternative. That's what it means. Because it's when you have alternative that you can be inconsistent. You can be inconsistent. But once you have a singular focus, once you know that there is no other alternative, this is the only way to live, right? You will have no choice than to create everything around yourself to ensure and support your consistency. And consistency does not mean that you have to be running marathon. No, life is not like a marathon race like many people talk about. For some, life is just like you taking a step at a time. It might not even be a race at all. It might just be a walk, because that's the kind of capacity you have. But it has to be a step at a time. You take the first step. Some, it might take them another break of 2 days, 3 days before they take the next step. But the important thing is you are consistently moving and building upon each of the steps, so that the step you have taken before, the next step is an improved step upon the previous one that you've taken before. And then you continue like that across that trajectory in order for you to be able to get to your destination, which is now the fulfillment of your purpose. And each step you take along the way, I always tell people, because of the impact of consistency and commitment. In fact, commitment institutes that you will always have an appraisal, because commitment will give you that sense of urgency towards success, right? It's going to give you the sense of urgency towards success. So you begin to look at everything that will enable you to succeed, which making continuous assessment for continuous improvement is path. So you see why this kind of disposition is very important. When you see someone that is so irregular and so inconsistent in life, you can easily tell why their life is the way they are, right? And sometimes when I'm trying to analyze people's lives, these are some of the principles I use. I want to see what has the person done over a period of time that is consistent. As a person being a consistent risk taker, as a person being a consistent decision maker, is it consistent? Does it have a consistency? Does it have a record of consistency in terms of achieving success? All of these things, you have to use these principles to be able to make some kind of appraisal and judgment on life. So it's very, very important, and you commit yourself to it, so that if it's only one thing that you're going to be known for, if it's going to be one single thing that you're going to be known for, it's better than for you to attempt to be known for so many things, and at the end of the day, none of them has a track record of consistency or commitment. You are everywhere, and the way this life is, the higher you go, the more the pressure and the more the battle you're going to fight. Imagine if you are going to be fighting in 10 wars. Do you think you stand a chance of winning all the 10 wars? Absolutely not. So what normally happens is, and this is a simple theory or principle we use even in science. When you look at the law of aerodynamics, thermodynamics, all of these things are Newton, Faraday, Edison, all of them, is simply they understood this life principle about legacies and impact. And what it says is the higher you go, the faster you move in life, right? The thinner for you to have enough penetration, the thinner you need to become. Let me give you a very simple explanation about this. When you look at the design of an aircraft, especially supersonic airplanes, or maybe torpedo, missile, intercontinental, ballistic missile, ICMB, all of these things, you will see their design. You see that at the taper end, they have this pointed element. They have pointed hands. You know the reason for that is to define, the trajectory and the rate of acceleration in velocity, how fast this thing need to go. Because at higher altitude, you need to deal with higher pressure. And the way to contend with higher pressure is when you reduce the surface area. So just interpret that into life, right? Just interpret that into life. If you want to have less impact, if you want the pressure of life to have less impact on you, you need to also reduce your surface area. Surface area in terms of how much of the capacity of things that you have been able to embrace. If you have 10 battles, you can rest assured that those are the different 10 areas you're going to be having fights. And every area of commitment portends a battlefront for you. Every area of commitment portends a battlefront for you. So you need to be careful. And for me, when I counsel people, I tell them, in order for you to be able to harmonize, the kind of pressure you're going to resist and contend with in life, is good for you to always integrate them on purpose. And what that means is you will have strict alignment of your commitment on purpose. You will have strict alignment on your purpose. And second, you have strict alignment of your commitment on your capacity and your competencies. So when you're able to do it in these two sides of the coin, you can never get things wrong. For instance, as long as it's your purpose, nobody can beat you down on it. Nobody can beat you down on it. And as long as it's your area of capacity and competency, capacity in terms of you leveraging on all other areas of life without any beats down, without any compromise, right? You can be rest assured that you cannot be displaced. Those are the areas where your greatest level of impact is going to be felt. So this is how to deal with life. Then the third one is what we discussed yesterday that talks about mentoring, how you empower people. It's also a very powerful principle in impacting people. I mean, I told you everything you can see as my basic accomplishment so far in about 4 decades on it has been based on this particular one. I'm still learning on the other ones, but this one, it's more like a tip of a finger thing for me. And once you are able to connect with this principle, it becomes part of your life. It's just flow naturally. If you are giving him to volunteer service, you are giving him to doing things effortlessly. You are giving to, I mean, it's not just all about the money, right? It's all about you seeing the way lives are being transformed, and from the high of your purpose, because there are too many problems that only you alone cannot solve. So you need to know which one is actually cutting for you. And it's upon that basis that you can then base your decision of where you want to empower people. Everybody on earth requires empowerment. Even me, myself, I require an empowerment. But hey, not everybody is sent to empower me. The people that are sent to empower me will definitely cross path, just like the way we have crossed our path. I mean, so that is the way life is governed, right? So you don't want to deny those people that you need to actually empower, mentor, like we discussed yesterday, in order for you to also harness your own growth. And as you are doing that level of investment and sowing seeds and all of that in their life, what you are doing invariably is you are creating tracks of impact. Imagine the person who taught or who mentored Barack Obama, that Barack Obama in almost all his books usually mentioned about, you know, I mean, never knew that was actually mentoring or was actually raising someone who's going to become the president of the United States, I mean, and so on and so forth like that. So you never can tell whom God, I mean, just like we have every one of you here, I don't know what level and height in life that God's going to take you. And once you get there, I'm sure that you'll never forget that you share the same space with me, you share the same space with every other person who have consistently walked the journey and committed to this program. And so that is just a clear picture of what legacies and impact means. And it's just about you building on those little things which resonates through the sand of time. It might take, just like you have seeds, some might take, I mean, because some seeds are perennial, some are biennial, so it might take a lot of seasons before the impact seed actually germinates. But the truth of the matter is, if it's sown, along the path of purpose, it will surely germinate. It will never die. The seed of impact will surely germinate. And the fourth one has to do with your adaptability skills and your creative thinking. This has a lot to do with sustainability because you need to imagine, like, some people are so gifted that they are now thinking sustainably. I mean, part of what I'm trying to also cultivate now, like I told you, it's also a journey for me. It's a continuous learning and all of that, is how to begin to think about the way to sustain and help the future generation. I mean, we have generation beta, we have generation gamma coming after generation beta. Who is going to take care of them? What kind of patterns are they going to embrace and all of that? There has to be that smooth transitioning across generations, right? This can also be part of the impact. Part of it might be that you see some of this knowledge, you have to document it, create history that they can assess so that they are not denied of truth. Because if our own generation is already emasculating and misplacing truth, you can imagine what will be handed over to their generation. So part of the excuse me, part of the things that you can begin to do is to look for innovative ways by which you want to help those generation to be self-sustaining and also to also find, and encounter truth on their own terms, even though it's not going to be in relative terms, because the way they are going to subjectify truth will be so shocking compared to what we are even seeing now, where people think that truth is so subjective. Is what you think that is true, that is true. Truth is always going to be absolute, right? So you want to present that to them holistically so that they don't lose touch about reality, as it were. So these are kind of principles that you can embrace, which I believe can also spring forth some other developments around the way you move in different directions of life. For instance, if you just focus on spirituality alone, there are certain principles that govern that dimension, which if you are able to abide strictly by the protocol, it will help you to even amplify the level at which you achieve greater results. And every point of success is also an indication of impact because nobody can deny success. Nobody can ignore success. Okay. As I end this, I just want you to think about this. I love thinking a lot, rational thinking now, not just logical thinking. And I want you to think about this four questions. First one, what do you want your legacy to be? I mean, just picture it. What do you think the kind of impact you want to have in the life of people or in history? What do you think that should look like? Just have a picture, a mental picture of it. If someone remembers your name and say, "Oh, there's one comfort," what do you think you want them to remember you for? And there's going to be so many comforts on earth, so many comforts, but there is always going to be one comfort that will stand out. There's always going to be one comfort that will be distinguished, that will be distinct. So what is that thing that you want people to know you for that will separate you from the multitude? Think about it. And what will the world miss about you when you no longer exist? Now everybody, all of us, we are matter. That's why we are still occupying space. We are matter. So the day your matter no longer matter, the day you no longer exist, the day you become a demise. So what do you think people are going to miss about it? And you can start, evaluating that from the little moments of your life. You have initially occupied a space. Maybe you are working in an organization before, and then something happened, you transition, maybe you resign, or you just move away from that location into another location. What do you think people had missed about you having passed through that organization? It might even be in your community, it might be in the house you've been together, it might be with your siblings, you've all lived all these years and now everybody has gone. I mean, just look at it from those subtle ways. Now imagine in a bigger way, by the time God calls you home and you are no longer here on earth. And then the final question will now be, what will be the memory lane that you are creating now, that you are building for yourself, so that after you are gone, In 10 years, in 20 years, in 30 years, in 1 century, do you think people will still remember you? Do you think there's still going to be a touch, a reference point to the fact that you actually passed through this earth, that you actually sojourn on earth? Just think about it. So when you're thinking about legacy, this is just the questions for you to answer so that you are not just casual about the way you go about your impact. You want to ensure that this resonates through, the sand of time. That's why I call it the sand of time. If you have ever seen a sand dune before, it's not just about the one grain, it's not about the two grains. Even million grains does not make a sand dune. It's a heap, it's a large heap, it's a sea of sand. So you need to be aggressive. It's like as if tomorrow is never going to come. That's the way you need to live your life. And I'm not saying you should become careless. I'm not saying you should become frivolous, but you need to be so guided and so focused and so singular that in your focus, in your mindset, in your pursuits, you can't afford distraction. You can't afford compromises. You can't afford to just while away time not doing purpose. That's exactly what it means. Imagine a whole lot of things I know now, a whole lot of things I know now after 4 decades. If I'd known them like 2 decades ago, 2.5 decades ago, like I used to tell people in entrepreneurship, like the day you start your business is the day your business profile starts counting, right? The day you start your business. Now imagine before that date, if you have started it a year before, that means you have had a year profile, a year experience in business, right? Imagine if you have started it 2 years before. And that's the way the world would judge. Trust me, that's the way the world would judge. That's why any job you want to apply for, they always ask for years of experience. And the same thing applies in business. You don't want to give a high profile job to newbies, to new startup, because that's going to be a high risk. So that's the way life matures and life is being analyzed from the perspective of men. And you can't take that away from us. So think about these things, and then I believe you'll be able to rightly appropriate yourself. And perhaps, you can then deeply reappraise what you have set as your goal for this year to refine it, retune it, begin to think in a particular way that will make your impact to resonate by the time you achieve success on those goals. Okay, so I'm going to stop here so that I can allow you to have some reflection, ask questions, and make some comments and feedback as well. Thank you. So, legacies, impact, question, reflection. What are personal experiences you want to share around this?
Can you hear me, sir?
Clearly, please, you can go ahead.
Okay, so the first thing I would say I learned today is I've always um had this um desire for sustainability, but I've always defined it to be being able to create structures, opportunities, like dropping breadcrumbs that people could easily pick up and make their lives easy. That is the generation to come. But I've never seen it in the light of legacy. And listening to you this night defines it better, and I'm glad, and I would like to say thank you to you. Yeah.
Great, excellent, excellent. That's good. So, like I said, life is to be lived intentionally. Uh, can't just be casual about things. Sometimes it's also going to help you to tame your passion, because if you allow emotions to drive you or keep moving you, you won't know when it will lead you into a ditch. Because I mean, initially everything might just be looking rosy. You are getting those hype. You are getting the fame. But I mean, I didn't mention this when we're talking about traction from mentoring from day one. I mean, sorry, when we are talking about traction last week, right? But one temptation about life is this: when you are talking about gaining traction, is different from becoming famous. They are two different things. You can be famous and don't have traction. You see why they always talk about there's a pain behind fame. I mean, this, you can see this clearly in Hollywood and all these pop stars, lifestyle, blah, 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 and all of that, you know. And they even end up acting movies and all of that. You can be famous, you can rise, you know, they will even say the rise and fall of someone and all of that. But when you're talking about traction, it's talking about progress. It's talking about acceleration. It's talking about the way at which you gain momentum and tempo in life. So anything that is not going to support that is definitely negative to you. So sometimes your emotion can suggest something to you, or maybe when you learn about something and it then become, you know, a pressured interest, you need to then put it in view of your purpose, which of course you must have understood based on all the tests we have done, you know, and it must align with your core values. This is how you do all the empirical analysis before you then give your commitment to it. And once you are assured, once there's a deep conviction about it, I mean, nothing can stop you. You become unstoppable. You become limitless. The way you're going to pursue it at the end of the day. In fact, you are going to even defy against all odds, because the fact that you are failing does not mean that you are going to quit. You know, you see what I mean? So the motivation is from within, not because someone is saying something or because of what the circumstance or situation is showing you. You know, so that's how you're going to pursue the course in that manner. So that's why it's always good to always put these things in check and validate it with all the principles I've shown you. So thanks for raising it. Thank you. Any other question, comment, experience that you want to share? Any comment, question, experience? Please, let's talk. Let's give a feedback. Let's share. Or is it that we are processing everything I said? Wow. Everybody's quiet.
Yeah, just processing, legacy has been something that has always I feel like it's always been on my mind, and I think it's partly because of the climate that I grew up in. Um, just my two backgrounds, Nigerian, but also Black American, and a lot of times in this part, there's a constant reminder about legacy and what we have done as Black Americans with the legacy that our ancestors have left in this country. And so there's always been that question of legacy, but bringing it so with that, there's a sense of responsibility, you know, and I know we get to a point where it's more than culture, more than tribe, more than ethnicity, but there is a sense of responsibility, just being part of that ethnic group in America, to leave a legacy behind. Um, and it's not even on a scale of, am I going to be remembered, um, you know, in the far future, but just adding to the numbers now. Um, for example, 4% of Black female psychologists in America, things like that. But on a more personal scale, and the legacy I would like to leave, um, aside from all of those other labels, it's a lot, and trying to, as you said, stick with your values, your purpose, just gathering up all of those things. What are your abilities, the mindsets you carry, your passions, your goals, your commitments, and how that as you gain momentum, as you dedicate yourself the to a cause, how that inevitably, hopefully, turns into a legacy, from the impact that you leave. So yeah, I just wanted to make that comment. I enjoyed the class. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Doctor. Thank you. You touched a number of things, and that's quite interesting. And trust me, I will just counsel or advise that you take it a step at a time, because it's like you building on the foundation that we've laid, right? So take your time and do the construction. You might want to start from the current dimension of your life where you have that strength. I mean, you're already gaining the traction. It might be your career, it might be your spiritual life. Start from there, and that becomes the reference point, that will, get you across other dimensions of life. I'll give you an example. I started with my own spiritual life. I mean, that's where I think I got the major motivation and strength from, right? Even before I could even think about career or academics or anything. So the confidence I got, with the way I was, gaining progress in my spiritual life was what took me into my career, was what took me into other dimensions of life. So if I would plot a graph or kind of like create a Venn diagram, I'll say my spiritual life or spiritual dimension is more like the fulcrum, in terms of my impact, is more like the fulcrum for every other areas of life. And each time I'm getting discouraged, I remember sometimes when I write an exam and I'm just like, hey, and this exam supposed to actually connect me to do something extraordinary in these areas. That's why I decided to go for this exam. And I failed at the attempt. Immediately, I just remember that, but you've done this, you've done this, you've done this, and all of that. I mean, I'll just get my group back. I'm like, oh yeah, let's go there second time. And so that's the way you will keep yourself going, and you can be rest assured that with consistency, trust me, because even nature embraces effect of consistency. With consistency, the fact that you are consistently failing at attempting things is even a way to create a stream of impact. Trust me. The fact that you are consistently, failing at attempting something is also a way to also create a memory in the heart of people, because they will always remember, oh, this person did it 100 times and eventually passed. Oh, wow, that's great. That's excellent. And there are some things that I actually failed at. And that is why I tell you that failure is not the fact that you failed at attempting something. I mean, you failed at an attempt, but failure is when you decide to quit at trying again. And this is how I mean. Some things when I sit for the exam, for assessment, the assessor will tell me I didn't do well. But on the practical field, everybody is hailing me that, oh, this is the best. In fact, people pulling here and there that this is the person that needs to come and deliver the value to us and all of that. So sometimes I'll just look at this dilemma that, okay, this one is telling me that, also, which one should I align with? Oh, these are the people that actually, after all, the assessor just wants my money. You understand? But the people that are actually benefiting from my knowledge, benefiting from my experience, benefiting from the requisite knowledge I have about this subject are so comfortable. So it's just a way to validate and certify truly that, oh, yes, you know what you're doing. That's what the assessor wants to give me. So I'm really motivated. I'm not discouraged. And when the right time comes, I will get the assessor's validation too and all of that. So that's how you continue to move on, so that you're not discouraged in any wise, in any area of life. You keep moving and your focus is definitely targeted on your purpose. Then you will not stop. And that's how you keep going. Thank you. Maybe I take one more person and then we'll round up. Who want to share? want to give comment, ask question, please talk. See, I'm begging you. Talk, share, so that I'll be able to close out for today. And after the session today, we'll have 2 more sessions. Okay, sorry, 3 more sessions, and then we're done. Okay, if no one is talking, so make sure you complete any outstanding assessment or assignment, whatever it is that you have, and please make sure you submit. Make sure you submit. Very, very important. Okay.